It is the middle of December 1989. We find ourselves in Palace Square, Bucharest, where the temperature is nearly freezing. Over 50,000 individuals have gathered here, many of whom were taken directly from their schools or workplaces. Some have endured the cold for more than 5 hours, all waiting for one man, Nicolae Ceaușescu. For 24 years, he has governed Romania with an iron fist. Just a few days prior, protests erupted in Timișoara following a local priest's criticism of Ceaușescu. When locals resisted his arrest, Ceaușescu's soldiers opened fire. Now news of these events has spread and protests are igniting across the nation. In a desperate attempt to salvage his image, Ceaușescu has called for a mass rally in Bucharest, which is to be broadcast live on national television. This decision will prove to be the gravest mistake of his life. As Ceaușescu steps out onto the balcony, he waves to the audience amidst the sound of nearly deafening cheers. However, something feels amiss. Almost all individuals in the crowd remain completely still, with only a few in the front rows moving. The cheers are artificial, a pre-recorded track blaring from massive speakers surrounding the square. Then Ceaușescu begins his speech. Initially, everything appears to be going smoothly. Yet just as he starts to thank the rally's organizers, screams erupt from somewhere in the crowd. This is not part of the pre-recorded audio. "Someone is shooting," his wife Elena exclaims. "They are entering the building," his security guard warns. Off-camera, protesters have breached barriers and are advancing towards the Central Committee building where Ceaușescu is located. The cameraman has received explicit instructions to direct the camera skyward if any unforeseen events occur. The demonstrators are now positioned directly beneath Ceaușescu, who, along with Elena, is vocally urging them to remain at a distance. This is a provocation, Nicolae thinks to himself, as he and his wife persist in their attempts to dissuade the protesters. Remarkably, the security personnel have succeeded in pushing the crowd back behind the barriers. However, it is too late. Even as Ceaușescu continues his address by proclaiming unexpected wage hikes and increased pensions, once the speech concludes, a significant portion of the crowd refuses to disperse. They are fed up with the deceit, the oppression, and Ceaușescu himself. They fan out across Bucharest chanting slogans such as "Down with Ceaușescu" and demanding freedom. Upon learning of this, Ceaușescu is infuriated. Remaining in Bucharest, he commands tanks, soldiers, and his own secret police to suppress the protests by any means necessary. Consequently, they do. Protesters are shot in the streets, and those who have barricaded themselves are targeted by snipers stationed atop numerous buildings. By morning, the streets are so saturated with blood that the military is compelled to wash it away using large water cannons to clear the asphalt. Meanwhile, Ceaușescu remains in Bucharest. Feeling a sense of relief, he is convinced that the uprising has been subdued. Surely, he reassures his wife Elena, everything will soon return to normal. However, he is mistaken. Before dawn breaks, initial reports indicate that large groups of workers are departing from their factories and making their way to the city center. A significant shift has occurred. The soldiers and police dispatched to manage the situation suddenly refuse to open fire and instead align themselves with the protesters. In response, Ceaușescu promptly convenes a crisis meeting with the remaining members of the Communist Party's Pilot Bureau within the Central Committee building. Concurrently, hundreds of thousands of demonstrators are now encircling the Central Committee headquarters, and they are beginning to force their way inside. With the protesters mere minutes away from breaching their offices, Ceaușescu instructs his pilot to prepare a helicopter on the roof. Both Nicolae and Elena appear visibly distressed and require assistance from their bodyguards to board the aircraft. Their faces are entirely devoid of color. Accompanied by 2 senior officials and 2 bodyguards, they cram into the helicopter and take off just moments before the protesters reach the rooftop. The pilot promptly directs the helicopter towards Ceaușescu's residence in Snagoff, located north of the city. Here, Nicolae frantically attempts to call for military support and instructs the pilot to secure 2 helicopters with soldiers for an escort. However, the response from the other end is unequivocal. They are left to fend for themselves. The pilot persuades the Ceaușescus to depart swiftly, abandoning the 2 officials to reduce the weight. Nicolae directs the pilot to head towards the western city of Tetu, in hopes of reaching a loyal military garrison. Suddenly, a message crackles through the radio. All flights are suspended. Any unidentified aircraft will be shot down. Consequently, they are forced to land. The pilot sets them down on a road between Bucharest and Targov. Thus, the Ceaușescus find themselves isolated, accompanied only by 2 security guards. After some time, they manage to commandeer a passing vehicle, a bicycle mechanic, who drives them towards the town of Târviș. During the journey, the Ceaușescus listen in horror as the car radio broadcasts a news report about the uprising success in Bucharest. The bicycle mechanic, Petrau, proposes that they seek refuge at an agricultural institute on the outskirts of the city. Upon their arrival, the institute director forcibly pushes the couple into a room and secures the door, imprisoning them inside. Shortly thereafter, local police apprehend both Ceaușescus and transfer them to a nearby military barracks in the city for the following days. The new government is resolute in its intention to bring both to trial as swiftly as possible. Consequently, the day following their capture, ICU, the newly appointed head of state, issues a decree to establish an extraordinary military tribunal that is to be executed immediately at the barracks where they are detained. Here they face accusations of genocide, the destruction of the nation's economy, and an attempt to escape with over $1 billion in foreign banks. As the charges are presented to them, Nicolae merely music laughs. The trial is short and primarily a formality. It lasts approximately 2 hours and occurs without any genuine opportunity for defense or appeal. Ceaușescu himself declines to acknowledge the court, deeming it illegal, but this is inconsequential. The tribunal convicts both him and Elena. The punishment for both is death by firing squad, with the execution to take place immediately. Without delay, Nicolae attempts to contest the ruling, but his request is rejected. Before being escorted out of the room, Nicolae addresses the guards, expressing his desire to be executed alongside Elena. They agree. Meanwhile, a soldier returns with rope to bind their hands, yet neither Nicolae nor Elena wishes to be restrained. Both protest to the soldiers, asserting that it is unnecessary and that they have no intention of fleeing, but once more, they are refused. They are then taken out to the courtyard and positioned against a wall of the barracks. Elena begins to hurl insults at the execution squad in fury. Other reports indicate that she starts to weep. In contrast, Nicolae remains relatively composed in his final moments and begins to sing the opening line of the Workers' International battle anthem. Music. The very next day, Romanian television broadcasts footage of the 2 corpses at the base of the barracks wall as conclusive evidence that the Ceaușescus have been eliminated. In May 1990, Romania conducted its first free elections since 1937. Over the subsequent 2 decades, it became a member of NATO, joined the European Union, and commenced its reconstruction.